In the 2015 NBA draft, there was 13 point guards that came off the board, and in that bunch includes a wide array of players ranging from those that became all-stars to others that never played a single game in the NBA. With it now being almost 10 years since the 2015 draft took place, I thought it would be fun to look back on every drafted point guard and analyze how each of their NBA careers turned out. If you like this type of content and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video, since I'm definitely going to be making more content like this in the future. Now with that out of the way, let's dive into the 2015 NBA draft. The first point guard taken off the board in the 2015 draft was D'Angelo Russell out of Ohio State, who was selected with the second overall pick by the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I know Russell is kind of a big meme in the NBA, and he frequently gets criticized for his bad performances, but looking at things holistically, at least from a stats perspective, he's carved out a pretty solid career for himself. He's been a key piece on several different teams over his career, and he's put up near all-star numbers in multiple seasons, even being an all-star selection in the 2018-2019 season. Now, whether he's lived up to his expectations as the number 2 pick, that's certainly up for debate, and most NBA fans, including myself, would probably say no. He's a really solid player, but I just think everyone was kind of waiting for him to take that next step up after his first all-star selection, and he just never really did. Maybe it's injuries, maybe he just wasn't a good fit for his teams, maybe his ceiling just wasn't as high as everyone thought. Whatever the reason, at this point in his career, he's likely never going to be an all-star level player ever again. That being said though, I think he can certainly be a solid number 2 or 3 option for most teams, and that's pretty much what his role is with the Lakers. I know he certainly has his down games, and he's not the greatest defender in the world, but he's still putting up solid production this year with 18 points and 6 assists on pretty good shooting. So while he never quite turned into a star player as many anticipated, he's certainly not a bust by any means. The second point guard taken off the board was Emmanuel Mudiay, who was selected with the 7th pick by the Nuggets after playing a year in China. I remember Mudiay actually being pretty hyped up at the time due to his rare combination of size, athleticism, and vision, and many people were excited about him and thought he had the potential to be a really good player. One of the major faults in his game, however, was that he could not shoot whatsoever, and posed virtually no threat as a perimeter scorer, and that would unfortunately be his main downfall in the NBA. He was a highly inefficient player, being a career 40% shooter from the field and only shooting 32% from 3, which, in the modern NBA, if you're a guard that can't shoot, you better be damn good in other areas, and in his game, there's just no other parts that he really excelled at. As such, he quickly faded into NBA irrelevancy, and over the years has bounced around between the G League, playing overseas, and being a bench piece for various NBA teams. He did have a really random resurgence with the Knicks in 2018 where he averaged 15 points and 4 assists, but other than that, the overall perception of Mudiay is that his NBA career has been a flop and by all means is considered an NBA draft bust. After Mudiay, the next point guard drafted was Cameron Payne out of Murray State, who was selected with the 14th pick by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Payne's NBA career has mostly been pretty unnoteworthy, as he's for the most part solidified himself as a solid bench player that can start a few games for you in a pinch. And that's not intended to be a slight to Payne at all. He serves his backup point guard role well, and he did play some big time minutes for Suns teams that made deep playoff runs. Will he ever be an all-star player in the NBA? No. Will he ever be a solid starter even? Probably not. But he's a steady player with loads of playoff experience, which can make him a valuable asset for any team. And the fact he's still getting playing time in the league now is a testament to that. Selected just a couple spots later was Terry Rozier from Louisville, who the Boston Celtics drafted with the 16th pick. Rozier is a prime example of how giving young point guards time to develop can really pay off in the long run. It would have been really easy to write him off his first couple years in Boston, but they stuck with him, and he managed to improve his game to the point where he got himself a big contract from the Hornets to be one of their key pieces, and he certainly put up some really strong seasons for them. However, looking at his current situation, being 30 years old and being on a loaded Miami Heat team, he's likely already past his peak in terms of production, but with the Heat, he has the ability to compete for championships in a role where he's not expected to be the main guy every game. So overall, I'd say Rozier has had a pretty solid NBA career thus far. Up next is Jerian Grant out of Notre Dame, who was selected by the Wizards with the 19th pick before being immediately traded to the New York Knicks. For his NBA career, he was mostly just a bench piece that saw limited action for some teams that really weren't that competitive, but he did have a really solid season in 2017, averaging 8 points and 4.5 assists. He last played for the Wizards in 2019 and has since been playing overseas. Maybe he has an outside shot of making an NBA roster again, but as of now, it seems like his NBA career has come to an end. Picked one spot after Grant was DeLon Wright out of Utah, who was selected by the Toronto Raptors. Wright is very similar to Grant in the sense that he's also a prototypical backup point guard, but I think Wright brings a little bit more to the table in terms of scoring, defense, and also size. He's certainly not lighting up the stat sheet, but he has shown over the years that he can be productive off the bench and is even capable of being a serviceable starter if called upon. He is getting up there in age now, so his career is on the downturn at this point, but he is still capable of coming off the bench and giving you some quality minutes. Following DeLon Wright is Tyus Jones from Duke, who was selected with the 24th pick by the Cavaliers and then immediately traded to the Timberwolves. He's another guy that fits the backup point guard mold, basically being known as a guy that can get you some quick buckets off the bench. He has been a bit more productive the last couple seasons, putting up double-digit points on respectable shooting numbers. Additionally, he's actually found himself in a starting role this season for the Wizards, and is having a career year averaging 12 points and 7 assists per game. I do think he's likely to be on a different team next season, so I think it'll be really interesting to see what kind of role he gets on his new team. Now, after Tyus Jones, there wasn't another point guard taken until about halfway into the second round, and I'm not going to lie, the rest of the guys really aren't noteworthy, so I'm going to move through them pretty quick. Starting off with Oliver Hanyon from Boston College, who was selected with the 42nd pick by the Utah Jazz. He'd actually never suit up for an NBA game, as he'd be cut by the Jazz shortly following the Summer League. Since then, he's never been able to make an NBA comeback and has been playing in various leagues overseas. Being selected right after Hanyon at pick 43 was Joe Young out of Oregon, who was drafted by the Indiana Pacers. His NBA career would fare a little bit better, but not by much, as he would only last 3 years in the NBA, serving mainly as a reserve player and averaging only 3 points for his career. He's since been playing ball overseas, most recently in Italy. Continuing the streak of point guards in the second round, Andrew Harrison out of Kentucky was the third consecutive point guard taken off the board, being selected 44th overall by the Suns and then traded to the Grizzlies. He did get some quality playing time early in his career, including a solid second year where he averaged 9.5 points and 3 assists, and it looked like he could actually be a second round steal. After a promising second season, however, his career would fall off a cliff and he never came close to matching that production again. He mainly served as a reserve player the rest of his career for a handful of teams, and his last NBA appearance was in 2019 with the New Orleans Pelicans. He's had stints in the G League and with various overseas leagues, and the odds of him ever making an NBA return are highly unlikely. Following Harrison, we have our fourth consecutive point guard off the board at number 45, and that's Marcus Thornton out of William & Mary, being selected by the Boston Celtics. Now, some of you older NBA fans might actually recognize the name and be thinking, oh, I remember him, he was actually pretty solid. Multiple productive scoring seasons, he was crazy glitchy in 2K, but you're probably thinking of this Marcus Thornton. The one I'm talking about would end up not playing a single game in the NBA, being relegated to the G League at the conclusion of Summer League. He stuck around in the G League for a while, but is now playing professionally overseas. Getting close to the end now, the second to last point guard off the board was Tyler Harvey out of Eastern Washington, who was selected with the 51st pick by the Orlando Magic. Harvey would suffer the same fate as the previous entry, never making the Magic roster and instead being relegated to the G League. He'd only stick around in the G League for one season before deciding to play overseas, where he is still playing now to this day. At last, the final point guard taken in the 2015 NBA draft was Nikola Radosevich, I think I'm pronouncing that right, out of Serbia, who was selected with the 57th pick by the Denver Nuggets, but like the previous two guys, he would never crack an NBA lineup and has instead been playing in various overseas leagues, which as of now is in Slovenia. So now you know how the NBA careers of every point guard from the 2015 draft turned out. Overall, I would say it was a pretty underwhelming class with only one all-star selection among the group and only a few notable players, with the rest being busts or straight up never even playing a minute in the NBA. If there's other position groups or draft classes you want me to make a similar video on, be sure to leave a comment and let me know, along with other video ideas you may have. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more sports content. This is Heatcheck Production signing off. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm out.